All right, and welcome to another episode of The Final Credits with your host, Mike Spade. And to round out our panel, we have BigGrim, Joey Pancakes, and Johnny64. Today's topic is Avatar 2, Way of Water. And listen, we saw it over the weekend, and everybody's got a couple of words to say. So, BigGrim, take it away.
Well, Spade, had some thoughts, and oh, look at this! A nice little present! Looks very beautiful on the outside, my goodness! Well, let's see what it is. A Christmas miracle, everyone! Stolen money! That's right! That's what Avatar The Way of Water was. Stolen money from everyone else. Looks very beautiful on the outside, I will give that. But I at least compiled a list that I may get into, and I may take a couple liberties with this. 12-point process, at least from the point where I just threw my phone against the wall and had to go get a new one. Number 1 hour in, bored out of my mind. Actually looking at my watch, did not care about anything else. Number 2, plot holes galore. My goodness, there were some glaring things happening in this that could not be avoided. Things that were just completely forgotten from the first movie. Number 3, Earth is randomly dying for no reason. This came out of nowhere. Who knew? Number 4, again, zero consistency with the first movie. Almost like it barely happened. Oh, yeah, I made a project about blue people. Yeah, let's keep on going with that. Number 5, this is where we get into spoiler tendencies, because at one point in the movie, our main character, Jake Sully, leaves his village to protect his family from the bad guys, literally to find another village and bring the bad guys upon their doorstep. Great job. Perfect writing. Number 6, excuse me. I actually need to back up for this because you all requested it. I'm James Cameron, and I know the ocean. Fantastic scenes of undersea life, but just way too much of it, to the point where, I need to get away from the story. Number 7, that whale scene. Again, I need to get away from the story to actually show that I know about the ocean and these magical creatures that I've made. Number 8, actual Free Willy. I think Joey Pancakes is going to get into that in a little more depth, so I'll leave that for him. Number 9, the connection with the whale inside is dumb. I mean that because if you saw the first movie, the people can connect with the life and the world through their hair, and the connection, for some reason, you have to be swallowed by the whale. At this point, I was just, almost everything that I saw was Number 10, new unobtainium. Grim, what's unobtainium? I'm glad you asked, random fan. Unobtainium is literally what the MacGuffin of the first movie. The reason why the bad guys came to the planet in the first place. A little rock of this unobtainium is apparently worth billions. That's right, not millions, billions with a B. And now we just found a new thing. Shove something right up a whale, extract it a little bit, bam, $80 million right in the cylinder. Actually said during the film. My personal favorite. My goodness. Number 11, Nickelodeon needs to sue, because my goodness, we've all seen a lot of the things going online that James Cameron has taken some liberties, has actually been very angry about Avatar The Last Airbender using Avatar for its name, and has been very angry, been very vocal, possibly suing over the said name. Now that that's kind of blown over, essentially is taking the themes from Last Airbender and putting it into his movie. The next movie, the third one, is going to focus on the fire people. This movie focused on the water people. Which brings me to my last point that I need to bring up on my phone. I'm James Cameron, and I can't tell a story without taking things from other people. This movie was lazy. It was horribly written. The acting was decent enough. And honestly, once again, if you didn't see it in 4K, it wasn't worth watching at all. 3 hours. 3 hours and change of my life I'll never get back, and $16. Wasted. Completely wasted. I think I've gone on.
All right, Kenny.
Who's Kenny? I'm Grim.
All right, Grim. It's hard to follow that act, so I'm here to talk about my turn to talk about Aquaman, this directed by James Cameron, starring Vinny Chase. What do you mean that's not a real movie? I'm sorry, I'm confusing the fake movie he did on Entourage. So to echo what Kenny said, yeah, that's time and money we're never going to get back. The joy I got out of the movie was picking out what movie like I felt like I was seeing. You know, to be fair, all movies or a lot of movies pay homage, have Easter eggs to several things, but in the movie, in this case with Avatar 2, The Way of the Water, I felt like my only entertainment was pointing out which movie, maybe even a couple TV shows. Kenny already said it with Free Willy. I mean, a whale storyline essentially out of nowhere. And to expand what I said in our short, it was overhyped, overrated, redundant, because I felt like I was just seeing an expansion of the first movie, which I'd say is much better, but that's not saying much. One of the strong points of the first movie is that this was Jake's story. While that very much remained at the focal point of in the sequel, that took well over 10 years to make and should have taken even longer. Like the children, like they played too much attention to the children and the crew on that ship. Like, let's see us set up our equipment. But to go down my own list, I feel like to ripped off with a couple TV shows thrown in. Xena the Warrior Princess, the scenes on the horse when the sea warriors and doing a chant. Terminator 2, Stephen Lang's character coming back, essentially being an evil Terminator. Aliens, Tarzan with Miles, the Tarzan-looking kid being raised by creatures, the son of the main villain. Avatar Stylebender was mentioned by Kenny. Dancing with the Wolves, because in a lot of ways we were seeing the same movie. But in this case, with Miles, the character raised by other creatures that he's fascinated with. Let's see what else. Pocahontas. Jake's oldest son, or one of his sons, being fascinated by the daughter of the head of the Sea People. Mike, you mentioned this during this. The Matrix. Jurassic Park with all the let's go to a new land and see the same dinosaurs looking creatures. Aquaman, well, I think that speaks for itself. Black Panther, I felt like I was seeing the same creatures we saw with Namor as his warriors. And to round this up, Flipper, The Lion King, Pinocchio, when they were inside the whale, Free Willy. Obviously, the first movie, Peter Pan, where Dr. Grace Augustine's daughter all of a sudden had these fairy powers and healing. And the biggest obvious nod and tribute to his own work, because he has the ego bigger than our own solar system, Titanic. Let's have a giant battle on a sinking ship and survival. I mean, I'm sure you guys could point out other quote unquote Easter eggs, but it was blatant ripoff. I feel like he was just taking pieces of his other movies and just throwing it together, put it in the water, and let's see what shit show with great visuals and somehow makes over $1 billion at the box office go together. But they easily could have chopped off an hour of that movie, maybe even a half hour, but it just dragged along, and I just couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there so we could just poke holes in it and talk about it and go down my list. But man, I felt like I have a headache, too much water, and I'm in no rush to see that movie ever again. Who's next?
It seems like Joey Pancakes had a lot of gripe against Avatar. Let's find out what Johnny64 has to say.
Yeah, I think our man Mr. Pancakes is going to be like suing for copyright infringement at this point. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna waste too much time reiterating like the finer details that everybody else has been talking about so far. But I mean, just in general, like the whole thing with Avatar is just, you know, the movies, both the first and this movie have been very long, and this one especially so. I mean, you know, we all thought it was horrible. I thought it was bad to the point where, you know, it's a 3-hour movie. You're wasting an entire evening watching this movie, and that's what it felt like by the time I left the theater. Was just that it was just so much of nothing that it just felt like a whole waste of time. It was a waste of 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And I think a lot of that attributes to the point that there was just so much padding and just a lot of useless bits of stories that didn't need to be there. And, you know, like you know, BigGrim said, like, you know, like extra MacGuffins that were either repeats of the last movie or things that just completely useless. So this movie was just the entirety, or most of the movie was just like, you know, one big cluster of just, you know, bad story writing, redundant pieces of you know, stories used before from the first movie, just like a whole ton of things that just, you know, by the end of the movie you're either confused or you were in disbelief from like what you even saw. And right now I'm stating things kind of lightly, but the thing is that, you know, I've seen a lot of bad movies in my day. You know, I've watched The Room, I've watched Spider-Man 3, I've watched Iron Man 3, I've seen all sorts of movies with like shoddy writing and terrible you know, pacing and whatnot. But this movie, it just I came into this movie expecting what I got out of the first one, that it was going to be, you know, a lot of beautiful visuals, it was going to be a lot of spectacle, not much in terms of story, but it was just going to get the job done. Well, all right, whatever, fine. Let's go sit down and see what James Cameron has in store for us today. And, you know, breaking it down like hour by hour, you know, by the first hour, I was just kind of, you know, there was just a lot of confusion because, you know, another problem with this movie is that it's a sequel that takes place 10 years since the first movie. It's taken a very long time, you know, to get this second movie out to the point where people were, you know, probably thinking there was going to be a myth or a unicorn that this movie was even going to exist. But, you know, the movie started out with Sam Worthington, you know, narrating in a similar fashion to Thor: Love and Thunder, you know, the events that had happened in between this movie and the last one. And there's a lot going on. You know, he had kids with you know, the female Avatar. The actress's name is escaping me at the moment, but Zoe Saldana. You know, so they have, I think, 2 kids. One of them, a third one who's adopted, who is somehow the child of Sigourney Weaver's Avatar character. And you'll also notice that I'm, you know, using the actors and actresses' names for the Avatar characters, not the actual Avatar names themselves, because everything. Another issue with Avatar in general is just that everybody just kind of blends in together. Everybody looks the same. They have names that you can't really remember. Nothing's really memorable with most of these characters. So, you know, the first hour was just me kind of hanging on for dear life, trying to, you know, just latch onto the story that they were trying to tell and see like where it was even taking us. And then by the time, you know, we got to that point, you know, like Sam Worthington, you know, got attacked by the bad guy from the last movie who got, I think his last name is Lang. I forget his first name though. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in on that, but you know, basically the villain from the last movie comes back in this movie as an Avatar because he was presumably killed, and in the first movie, and he, you know, his consciousness gets moved into this new Avatar, so it's like he's like immortal, and which is ridiculous in itself. And he attacks Sam's family because now Sam Worthington's avatar is now the leader of the whole, community of avatars from this first movie. And instead of fighting back, he decides, I'm going to protect just my family first and run away. And I'm going to run far, far away to somewhat like another, where we don't even know where yet. And immediately it just strikes me as confusing, because why would you do that to the whole rest of your army, your community, the people that you've been leading this entire time? You appointed a new leader, which is fine, but you're the leader for a reason, and you just basically just showed everybody that you're too afraid to deal with this threat. In my opinion, that's just being a bad leader. So that was like blatant issue number one. And then jumping into the second hour of the movie, he and the family moved to the what I like to call the water type Pokemon avatars. In their little town, beachside town, where they have like all these little cabanas and things and docks and whatnot. Very beautiful looking. Like the others have said before me, that the ocean visuals were nice. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I enjoyed at least the first few scenes of them swimming, through the ocean, seeing all the different new types of wildlife that they that were swimming amongst them. I like the the expansion of the ecosystem and the living creatures on the planet Pandora. I enjoyed that, but even that became a little too much to deal with after a certain point in the movie, because those scenes kept coming back at us again and again and again, and I felt like they were spending more time making showing us them swimming through the ocean than the crucial scenes that actually would move the story forward. And I felt like if they did these scenes the right way, or cut them at least, we would have gotten probably like a whole half hour or even an hour cut from this movie that just wasn't needed. So again, like just the extra padding that added to the length of this movie was just way too much. And then so getting to like getting right past the first half of the movie, we get introduced. So one of Sam Worthington's sons, he's starting to butt heads with like the water type Pokemon avatars, and he gets tricked into going into this bay area that was very dangerous and had a lot of dangerous animals in it. But then he gets attacked by one, and he gets saved at the last minute by this Pandora version of a whale. And it's a nice moment. At first you think like, okay, it's a bigger fish. There's always a bigger fish somewhere in the ocean, and he basically just got saved by something more dangerous and bigger. Turns out this whale is friendly. But not only that, the Avatar son befriends this whale, which is like, okay, getting a little corny, but fine. This whale is probably going to help him later on, because he had a harpoon stuck in his fin that the Avatar helped him get out. Nice little moment. But then he starts to talk to the whale, and that's when I started to raise an eyebrow a little bit and started to look left and right to the rest of our team in this video right now, and just saying like, am I the only one that is just like what's going on right now? Like, I'm just completely confused, and I'm a little concerned. Like, where is this scene going? Where is this movie going right now? And that was the tipping point where the movie went from being like, this is definitely going to be overrated and not as great as everybody is saying it is, to this is actually a bad movie. This is terrible. This is the worst plot point I've ever seen in a movie that took itself seriously. And this whale character, because it is a character, the more this movie went on, the worse development this whale character and his whale family, because they're not just a whale pod, they're a whole community that lives amongst these water avatar. And it turns out that they communicate, and they are very smart, and they communicate with the avatars to the point where there's a scene where the water type queen is talking to the mother whale, and the whale in the regular whale noises, and you'll see the little subtitles asking, "How is your baby doing?" And at that point, I've never done this before ever in a movie. I had my jacket with me, and I just started slinking deeper and deeper into my seat, and I just started cringing beneath my jacket. I was like, I can't watch anymore of this. This is so corny, and this is so painful to watch. What is going on with this? How did this get greenlit? How did James Cameron thought this was a good idea to put into the movie? like I get like having like another species that the Avatar live amongst, like that would be fine, but make them an actual. If they're going to be an intelligent species, make them like Avatar, like make them humanoid, make them actually speak words. Like just it was just too much for the like the suspension of disbelief to even just take seriously. And then and as Grim said before, there was another scene where and then this was like two bad points in one, where the Avatar character, or no, yeah, the Avatar character that befriended this whale, the whale is now dead because there was a scene that we had to feel terrible for these whales, and get a good taste of like how brutal the antagonists, the villains were. One of the whales in the community got killed. I think it was the calf. I don't think it was somebody else. At that point, I wasn't paying too much attention because I was like, this is a ridiculous movie. And so like from the first movie, everybody the natural order was established where everybody bonds with each other. Like the avatars have those little hair wire Ethernet cable things that you just plug into another living being, and you bond with your memories and your feelings and all that stuff. In the whale's case, you have to climb into its gaping mouth. The whale the whale was actually still alive at that point. He opened his mouth, and I'm like, this is a Finding Nemo, get inside my mouth if you want to live moment. And he climbs into the back of the whale's mouth. It's dark except for all the sparkly light things, like just like the Avatar skin, because everything's got to look like a freaking universe in this planet. And he had to plug his hair piece into like the back of the whale's throat or something, and he had to find like all the memories he needed through there. And I'm like, what natural sense does this make to have any living being go inside the mouth of another just to have that crucial link happen? Like that made no sense to me. So like things like that were just running rampant throughout this whole movie, especially with these stupid whales, that I was just like, I'm just done. And we still have like 2 hours left in this movie, or an hour and a half. And fast forward, like typical good versus bad guy stuff happens. There's explosions. I think it looked like Michael Bay might have gotten involved at some point because there was so many explosions for no reason. And end of the day, the day was sort of saved, but not. And then I don't know. The whole thing was just a mess. It was just, there was so many plot points that were useless. There was so many, extra scenes that weren't needed. There were so many extra characters that weren't needed. Like I said, like half the characters, I don't know any of their names. I can't even remember their faces properly, or their like what they looked like, because they all just looked like blue Avatar people. They all look the same. And by the end of it, I was like, man, I don't even want to see a third movie if he's making one, especially if he's going to be going the route of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he's setting up like fire Na'vi and water Na'vi and all this stuff. And then, Sigourney Weaver's, daughter Avatar person had like underlying extra powers that like she could interact with like the surrounding nature and living things around her and the water. And I'm like she's gonna be like the Avatar. Like there was just so many things that I was like where is this movie going? Like, let's just end it already. I can't believe this is 3 hours long. I'm done. Like, I'm just completely done. So it had to have been, for the length of time that it spanned, it was one of the worst things one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I do not recommend anybody waste their time, 3 hours of the day, their evening or their afternoon watching it at all. So yeah, all I have to say.
Well, John,
Bravo.
I'm going to tell you this much, John.
Yeah.
Mr. 64, I'm just going to say that you literally said the whole point of the movie in 5 minutes, and you saved everyone else 3 hours and 55 minutes. Sorry, 2 hours and 55 minutes of watching Avatar: Way of Water. All right, guys. So listen. This is the end of the video. This is the part where we tell you, hey, what do you guys think? Tell us down low at the comment section. Wow, words are so hard today. So anyway, guys, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Roll credits.
Roll credits.